is love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I thought the world is all the same. There is love.
Took up my phone. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Level Up Your Marriage. And we are in the place again, one more week, along with my beautiful co host Racquel. And at the master control is Brother Dexter. And we are happy to be on another episode of Level Up Your Marriage. And tonight we have another interesting discussion, another informative discussion. Tonight we will be talking about the power of love and respect. You would have heard in our previous discussions that we would have mentioned this topic several times, and we want to dive into some more of this tonight. So, wherever you're joining from, whether you're in the Caribbean, you're in Africa, wherever you're joining from, we are happy to have you. If you're in the US, you're in England, we are happy to have you. Welcome, Racquel. How are you doing?
Good evening, everyone. I'm doing very well. I'm in good company of my husband and great brother, Dexter, and the audience from all over the world, the Caribbean, US, all over the world. We are happy that you're here with us, and this is going to be an exciting, interesting, riveting discussion this evening about love and respect. This is a topic that is,
Wonderful.
this is a topic that is very important for us. The book that is written by um, Egrich.
Emerson Egerich.
Yes, it's a book that I'll give you a little piece, and then maybe one of these days when you meet us, you'll hear more about it. So on our first anniversary, I gave Paul that book. It's called Love and Respect, and it's one of those books that he holds dear. You know, it's it got his attention. He loves it. He talks about it all the time. And so it's important to speak the language of love for your spouse, for your husband. So I think that's a good segue for our discussion about the power of love and respect. So over to you, Mr. Handsome.
Yes, Raquel tell her that story, but she left out an important detail.
We'll
That
tell you more another time.
I am not a fan of marriage and relationship books. I find that a lot of persons who write these books write some places that sometimes are very unrealistic. And that particular book I found to be very, very practical. And it's one of those books I use even in my own counseling office with couples. It's one of my go-to books, Love and Respect by Emerson Egerich. And it's, you know, we could not have a level up your marriage without without discussing that book at some point in time. So tonight, join us as we talk about the power of love and respect and what place it plays in marriage. Emerson Egerich, is very insightful in how he dives into discussing this particular topic. And one of the things that I love is that he discusses it from a biblical perspective.
Mhm.
And he uses Ephesians chapter 5 from verse 21 to 33, and he does an excellent job in tying how love and respect uh, flows in marriage, and how it helps to build a better and stronger relationship. He he uses the whole idea of love and respect, where he looks at what it means to men and also what it means to women. He looks at the fact that there are some things in terms of how we function as individuals that are natural to us as male and female, as wives and husbands. For men, he says that respect is what is important to men, and love does not come naturally to men. So men have to learn how to love, and especially love their wives. And then he uses the fact that love is important to women because that is what comes naturally to them. Respect doesn't come naturally to them. So they have to learn what it means to respect a husband, a leader. And I find that very, very, very interesting. When I read it, it opens so many doors for me in terms of how I understand marriage and relationship. In Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33, Paul writes, however, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. If you are using an old King James version, that the last part of that text will say, the wife must submit to her own husband. And that word submission means respect. Right? It doesn't mean, as many people think, that she is in a subordinate position, that she's somehow lesser than the man. That's really not what it means. As a matter of fact, I dare say that it is as far as the east is from the west, if you believe that. That word submission really means to respect. And so our discussion tonight will be centered around this whole idea of love and respect and what it means to us in our relationships and how we can use the concept to make our relationships stronger. Raquel, have anything to add to that?
Well, we're doing it together, and the when two pieces of a puzzle fit together, that is
That's right.
that's the concept where you have love and respect, and these two elements are so important for the success of a relationship or the success of a marriage. And so, as we
Hmm.
delve into the discussion, I definitely want to make the point, excuse me, that that in fact, women, although women, the necessity of love for women, it doesn't mean that she doesn't understand or that she doesn't want respect. And in a similar way, although respect is so important for a man, it doesn't mean that he doesn't need or want love.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of the priority or the preference in terms of how it is communicated. And that is definitely something that we're going to be delving in this evening. So,
All right.
what
So,
does love look like for the man or for the woman?
yes. So let us start the journey.
Yes.
For women, her natural emotional makeup is love.
Mm-hmm.
Her language is love, basically. And there is a real deep seated need for an expression of that love, that affection, that emotional connection. Women are always talking about connection. That is one of the words that you'll hear wives mention a whole lot, the need for emotional connection. And I want to say that this really brings across that there is a inherent desire for emotional intimacy and a sense of security within the marital relationship. Women seek assurance and validation and affirmation of their worth from their husbands. And I want to say, who better to seek that affirmation and validation from and that assurance than the person who you have committed to live your entire life with, to share your relationship with. And so I want you, and I'd want you to discuss it from a personal point of view, as sometimes as men some things are hard to hear, but one man says it may be hard to hear, but it is necessary. So what does this look like for you, this idea of the expression of love?
The expression of love. You talk about the emotional connection, the validation, the affection, the the reassurance. I remember earlier in the early days of our marriage, reassurance is still important to me, but I think initially or in those earlier days, reassurance meant so much to me because, like you said, if I've committed myself to you all the days of my life, forsaking all others, you know, I, I believe that
Yes, forsaking all others.
that's correct. I believe that you have a as my spouse, as my husband, it's only reasonable that I look to you for reassurance, for emotional support, for affection, for communication. That for active listening, and those are ways that I look that love is demonstrated to me. You know, those are ways that you send a message that I am loved, I am appreciated,
Hmm.
I am valued, and so that sometimes
break it,
it's
break it down for the audience a bit.
break it down a little more. Well,
Yes, and when I say break, what does assurance look like for you?
assurance looks like that you're telling me that you value me, that you love me, that you have forsaken all others and you are committing yourself to me. You know that
Hmm.
it sends a message of worth. Tells me that you're part of the strength that we're as coming together as two becoming one. It sends a message of strength. It sends a message of security that I'm cherished. You know,
Hmm.
and those are some words that I would use to describe how the love is demonstrated, or how it is the need for love for women. How men should really communicate it and demonstrate it to their wives, that
Hmm.
that women have a need to feel valued and cherished, and the element of security is such an important one, that we're appreciated, that we're understood. Is that any
Uh,
clearer?
yes, man. Yep, yeah, no, man. That's good. Emerson says that wives has have a need to feel cherished, appreciated,
Mm-hmm.
and understood on a deeper level. And sometimes I'm scared of that word, a deeper level, because sometimes sometimes I wonder what exactly does a deeper level mean. But I really understand where he's going with it.
But the deeper level,
Yeah.
just to add a little, the last time we spoke about
Yes.
intimacy. You know, 2 weeks ago we were talking about the spark and intimacy. So that the deeper level speaks to the intimacy, the element of being able to be vulnerable with each other. But
Hmm.
that comes with time. That comes with reassurance. You know,
Hmm.
continue.
I want to pick your brain here a little bit, because and this whole idea of a deeper level. Um, am I hearing you say from the discussion that deeper level means to really move from speaking about the surface things, right? speaking about the everyday mundane stuff that really happens every day, like the
The
bills
bills
and
and the children and the
children and the work
traversing to work and so
and all
on.
of that. So it's really, and this is where the emotional connection comes in, that we connect on a deeper level, which means that we must be open, vulnerable, able to express how we feel. But Raquel, isn't that a little bit hard for men to do?
Well,
That is not that we
the,
don't, not that
is
we don't love you, but isn't that a little hard to do?
yes, it might be hard, but who says life is all about easy? That's that's one of the commitment. I mean, understanding men is not always easy,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's understanding women is not always easy. But it's okay to be imperfect, but
Mm-hmm.
the effort, the message, the notion that says I'm willing to make an effort, I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing to work with you. We're willing to work together so that you take the time to understand and appreciate my needs. And I take the time to understand and appreciate your needs. As as we're talking about Emerson, I was in preparing, he also made a point in one of the videos that persons have this notion that marriage is going to be all 99%, hunky dory, always stress
Mm-hmm.
free,
True.
and so on. But
Mm-hmm.
he talked about the importance of the struggles of being uncomfortable, of the process of growth. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to realize that there'll be probably 80% good, and of course, the 20% element of conflict or disagreement. And it is through those tussles, we talk about I'm sure you're going to touch on the crazy cycle, where when the woman
Mm-hmm.
feels that she's unloved, and her reaction will cause the husband to feel disrespected, and now you have a cycle of backing and forth of the misunderstandings and the quarrels. And so he mentioned that it's okay for those things to happen, but no, the
Yeah.
process of working through it to come to a place of understanding, the reassurance, the honor that would come as a result of going through those struggles or the
Yeah.
crazy cycle.
Yeah. So I am hearing a saying though that love for women is really more than just saying it. It goes along, because one
Of
one of-
course,
one of- I think one of the mistakes we make as men is that, and because of the fact that society basically tells us that saying I love you to our spouses and everything is an important thing, which is an important thing. But there's also the element though of action that goes with the words, because it is not, saying I love you alone is not enough. That must be backed up by some action that concretize that the words basically. And so that is
definitely,
where the whole thing, validation, affirmation, and so forth comes in, right? And it's a lesson. I just says it is a process that many of us as men have had to learn, because we would have had to sometimes even shed some of the preconceived notions and stuff that we would have grown up with, right? And so we have to look at, there must be actions that validate the words that we speak.
definitely. I think we, most of us in the Caribbean and even the world, the song that says "action, not a bag of mouth."
Hmm.
It has to be. And saying "I love you" is definitely important, because it needs
Hmm.
to be heard, but it also needs to be felt. It also needs to be demonstrated, because there are times when couples don't feel loving. There are times when the wife does not feel loving towards her husband,
Hmm.
but she still
Yeah.
has a responsibility to commit and to remain faithful and to remain loving, even on the days or the times, the moments when you don't feel loving. Because
Yeah.
really, love is an action.
But here's a question, and I know that many, if you are married, right? And remember, always, if you have a question or a comment, you can leave it in the chat, and we will read your comment or address your question. This is an open discussion, and feel free to participate. But Raquel, one of the things I want to ask you though, and you can shed some light on it for information for especially our wives who are are on the platform before we move to the other part of the discussion. And also, the response is also for men to learn something. What is it that causes you not to feel loved? And it might be getting a little personal. What is it that caused Raquel not to feel loved by Paul Blake, who she has been married to for 7 years?
Well, this question would come at some point. Eh?
Yeah.
One of the things that I would readily share is when you refuse to listen. We're trying to have a discussion, we're trying to communicate, and there's refusal to listen or to acknowledge my point of view, you know.
Hmm.
And we talk about the importance of active listening, but when listening now becomes inactive or there's a shutdown when without the reassurance, without the affirmation, where you're taking the time to that I it's important for women to feel heard. It's important for many people, and even for men too. But it's important for women to feel heard and to for you
Hmm.
to not run off and say, sometimes persons are you're communicating, sometimes husbands and wives are communicating and the husband might say, done, conversation finished. Let us stop it here. You know,
Hmm.
the element of the wife feels dismissed. The wife feels I feel dismissed when from time to time you might say that, you know. Um
Hmm.
and it's important that when husbands and wives are sharing that the element of giving the wife the element of listening to her.
Yeah.
It's so important that I feel heard, I feel valued, I feel secure that when I'm sharing, when I'm being vulnerable, that you don't take it for granted,
Hmm.
you know?
One of the things that Emerson said, I don't remember which chapter he said it in, is that as men, when we don't give our wives the listening ear that she deserves as
Mm-hmm,
somebody who we love,
mm-hmm,
that it makes her respond as a deflated balloon. I'll never forget that statement. That, he says, he used the analogy that it is like a balloon that is fully blown. She comes built up, ready to express how she feels, wanting to be validated. And because of our response, what we do is that we deflate the balloon. And so she feels defeated. And I really found that interesting
mm-hmm.
because, interestingly, what you just said a while ago is not only something that pertains to me, but also is something that I hear every day
Mm-hmm.
in terms of when I counsel couples. Even Emerson says that one of the things that causes a lot of conflicts in relationships, where wives are concerned, is when a wife does not feel heard, and when her feelings are not validated.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then Emerson went on to say that a lot of times also is that the husband does this with not with any ill intention, and that is many times where the conflict comes from, because when we feel not validated and so forth, it often comes off as a personal attack, right? And Emerson said that a lot of times when this happens, it is not that the man is being a brute. I think he used that particular word, but the fact that there is a miscommunication in the whole relationship, where sometimes we don't understand who we are in our natural habitat. And one of the things he said is that one of the reasons why men respond that way is that men are by nature problem solvers, right? And I
Hmm.
think it's something that we would have discussed before, that oftentimes when we hear our wives unburdening and wanting to be heard, in our minds what we think about is that there's a problem to be solved. And and immediately what we do is
You know,
that we
to
go,
fix it.
we run full force ahead to solve the
You know,
problem, not
it's a
realizing
fix
that,
it mode.
yeah. And I guess that is also part of the whole idea of understanding somebody's love language, right? And I think for many women, many wives, their first long love language usually starts with somewhere around the listening part, the desire to be listened and to be validated.
To be
And
heard.
I know that is big for most women, not necessarily for every woman, but
No.
in my experience dealing with relationships, I find that this is one of the key factors. When a woman feels that she is being listened to and that she is being affirmed and validated, it makes her feel as if she is on cloud nine.
So
Wrong or right?
full 100, full 100. But you know, you spoke about the fact that the men, you share the point, and it sounds simple. It seems simple that you know that
Hmm.
even if husbands don't get it right in the first month or first 3 months, first 6 months of marriage, that over time, it will be something that the husbands should understand, should appreciate. So why do you think it's such a that principle or that concept in terms of understanding that need of the wife to be heard? Why do you think that it's so hard for the men to apply it or to just to come to accept it?
I guess because I think it is how we are wired, and but isn't that why Emerson discusses the whole idea of love, how love is important for women, because it is not something that's natural for men. In other words, it is something that we have to learn, and in learning that, it means we have to shed some of what we had before,
Yes.
right? And that's it's something for me that takes a lot of time. I mean, in our relationship, we have been married for close to 17 years, and it is still something that we are going through, something that we have to be working through. And you would have thought that we would have gotten there by now, but that's not it. It is a process.
Right. It's a working process, you know, it's work in progress. And so that's one of the nuggets that you know the persons who are listening, whether you're married or you're contemplating marriage, you're courting, is that you're not gonna get it right even when you're married. You're not gonna always get everything right.
Hmm.
And so the element of reminding yourself that I have my husband's best interest at heart. My husband has my best interest at heart, and that's a good premise on which, even when there's conflict, when there's disagreement, when there's misunderstanding, one important point to always keep in mind, you know, the goodwill of your husband and the goodwill of your wife. Emerson speaks about that too. You know, where I don't think that you're out to get me, and you shouldn't think that I'm out to get you.
Yes,
You
true,
know,
true,
it's just
true.
that we're having a misunderstanding. We're at two. You know, I'm wearing pink glasses and you're wearing blue glasses,
That's
and
right.
so
True,
you know,
true.
we're seeing things from a different perspective. But if we take the time to find out a little bit more, to calm down. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, sometimes you might be hungry, you might be sleepy, you know, the children getting the better of you. But the idea is that you're not out to get me. I'm not out to get you. You know, we're thinking of, you know, the goodwill.
Hmm.
We're in this thing together. And if we can remember that concept or that principle in the times when we're off balance, then I think it makes a difference in us showing love and respect to each other.
Yeah, very true, very true. Before we switch the discussion to the men,
Yeah.
an important thing that Emerson said is that when a wife does not feel love and emotional connection, that she will experience feelings of loneliness, insecurity,
Mm-hmm.
and emotional distance. And without that kind of assurance and affirmation from her husband that he loves her, that she may struggle with feelings of inadequacy and doubt regarding her own worth and her value. I'm touching on a little bit of that for me.
Um, Rephrase for me. I think I missed some of what you said.
Well, he said when a wife does not feel love and emotional connection, when these feelings are not
Mm-hmm.
met, when these needs are not met, that she may experience feelings of loneliness, insecurity, and emotional distance in the relationship. And then he goes on to say that without this kind of assurance and affirmation of her husband's love, that she will struggle with feelings of being inadequate and doubting herself regarding her worth and her value.
Yes, I mean, that's true. That's true. And so if you don't take the time to listen to me, if I'm speaking to you and you are, you know, caught up watching the TV, or I'm speaking to you and then you start singing a song or you start doing something else, you walk away, the message that comes across is that I'm not that important. What I'm saying is of no value to you. So it sends a conflicting message that says to me that, hmm, I thought we were in this thing together. So
Mm-hmm.
loneliness and resentment can build up. Uh, and that's why it's important for us to catch ourselves in the sense that the expression you use about, or the phrase about, feeling lonely, uh, lack of affirmation and reassurance. When those things happen,
Mm-hmm.
then it's okay to say, Paul, I'm feeling unloved because I'm trying to tell you something and you walked away. Or what's up with that? So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to
Yes.
communicate the times when you're feeling unloved or when you're feeling disrespected, as opposed to thinking that, oh, um, I, I am unimportant to Paul, or I I no longer have that place
Mm-hmm.
in your heart, because that's not really true. That's not really true.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have done sent the wrong message to me. So I should let you know that you're not what you're sending to me, it's coming across as unloving. And
Mm-hmm.
Emerson makes the point that it's okay to get upset, it's okay to be angry, but to communicate in a way that says I am feeling unloved, or for the men, I am feeling
Mm-hmm.
disrespected. And when that is
Mm-hmm.
communicated, to say that I don't think that you're a jerk. I don't think that but it's just that what you're saying or what you have done sends the message that I'm feeling unloved or I am
Yes.
disrespected. So there's a difference with me thinking that, oh, I am no longer worthy of your love, or I'm telling them that you're a jerk. When we go into those places, where it's muddying up the relationship. But if we can effectively communicate that what you have done comes across as unloving, or what you have said is disrespectful to me, it communicates in a better way what's happening, rather than the verse of now speaking about using derogatory terms, feeling sorry for yourself, and taking all on that negativity. I think it makes a big difference
Mm-hmm.
in terms of stating how your action, how your behavior is affecting me, or
Mm-hmm.
how my behavior is causing you to feel disrespected.
Yes. Yes. Comment says this is so true. Sometimes my wife tells me I don't listen to her. Hence, I have made it my duty to speak less and listen more. As a result, I have experienced more love and respect from her. Praise the Lord. Wonderful. And
Yes,
that
that's a
and
great
that
testimony.
is true. That is true. Yeah, that
That's
is so true. So true.
right.
Segue a little bit.
All
segue in a
right.
little bit. We have spoken much about the wives. We want to
Mm-hmm.
speak to the husbands now. So Emerson here argues that for men, our fundamental need is to be respected, to be honored, to be admired. This is what we seek from our wives. This is deeply ingrained in us. And you know, when I was preparing, you know, uh, something just came into my mind. Suppose my wife, and this was just thrown out that if anybody asks a question,
Okay.
that wife says, "Am I responsible for feeding my husband's ego?" That question came up as I was looking at it. And but the answer also came into my head because the answer is, if not you, then who? Right? That was the answer that came. If not you, then who? Because the truth is, somebody is willing to do it.
Correct.
Somebody is going to honor your husband. Somebody is going to be willing to respect him. And as sure as night turns to day, somebody's going to admire him.
Yes,
so
indeed.
so
And
yes,
indeed.
and I yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you
But
that if the wife doesn't do it, or if I don't do it, if in terms of us being personal here, then somebody else is willing to
yeah,
do it. And so
yes, true.
it's important. But just a quick going back to what we spoke about earlier for the woman, and the men should understand this too, that when the husbands refuse to listen, refuse to pay attention, refuse to be tender and affectionate, the same point holds true, that somebody else is willing to do it. And so, not that
Yes, true,
this
true.
not that this is a threat of any sort, or but it's important that men and women, husbands and wives, understand the role that they have and the asset and the value that they have, and treat it with care and cherish. Women, husbands need to cherish their wives, and wives need to cherish their husband, because of course
Yes, true.
we don't want them to drift, because somebody else is Satan is always lurking and rearing his ugly head, and somebody else is always out there wanting to cause mischief.
You know what I find interesting, Raquel? When Paul wrote, Paul says, "Husbands, love your wives."
Hmm.
But when he responded to the wives, he says, "Wives,
Respect
submit to your own husbands."
to
That
your
word
own
"own,"
husbands.
that's
That's that's
and
loaded, right?
I think that Paul deliberately used that word.
Yes.
Wives, submit to your own
Mm.
husbands. Right? I
That's
think he
so.
was so very deliberate using that because the truth is, and again with our experience and interaction with various persons, we would have been in different situations already when we would have heard wives expressing admiration for other people's husbands and other men, right? And Paul is here, and Paul is not suggesting that other men don't deserve admiration
Oh,
and
no.
all of that.
Mm-mm.
But I think he is zeroing on the point that if your relationship is going to be one that glorifies the Almighty God, then you have to give attention to your spouse. And notice that he is writing in the context of the church. And so I can understand why he would make that particular statement because it is I think it's a natural thing to give honor and respect to those who lead you in the context of a congregation.
Yes.
It's a natural thing to admire those who are in the position of leadership and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul, I don't think Paul is anyway suggesting that you should not honor and admire these persons, but Paul is basically looking at the fact that your first priority is really to your husband. the one who God has given head over you, the one who God has given put you under his leadership. And so this idea of respecting your husband is very, very, very important.
So what does respect look like for you?
What does look like? Well, yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. Um, I think for me, respect really means to be my partner in the marriage, to value value the decisions that are in, and note, never say, I'm not going to say make the decisions, but value the decisions that are entrusted to me, and these decisions are entrusted by God himself. There are certain things that God has um, given me responsibility for as a husband. Also, even within the context of leading a family, there are times when the husband might not make the best decision, and I'll use myself as an example. There are times when probably I would not have made the best decision on behalf of the family. But I mean, you have never at any point in time jump on me and say, "Boy, see, I told you that this thing would have gone wrong, and see, you do it." In all our 17 years, you have never done that, and it is not that you have not pointed out either that a particular you could have done something differently. And so that is what respect means for me. Admiration is important, and you know how I like to dress up and everything. I like when you look at me and say, "Boy, you look good." Right? That is important. Those things and I said it at the beginning, Raquel. If you I think it runs the same for wives also. If you are not going to be the person that tells me that, boy, even with the pot belly, that you look sexy, right? You know that you still look very attractive. The question is, if not you, who? Because as we said before, make no bones about it. Somebody is out there willing to do it, right?
Yes,
And if our natural inclination as men is that our need for admiration, respect, and honor, if that is our natural inclination, then it means, Raquel, that if it is not being given by our spouses, it means that if we hear it on the outside, then and I think that is why a lot of men end up in infidelity.
true.
A lo- Based on our own interaction with married couples, many times when we sit and discuss relationship breakdown and conflict, we will always hear husbands saying, especially, that there is this part that they are not getting at home, and a lot of it has to do with honor, admiration, and all of that.
Yes, so you're right. So what I hear you saying is that the husbands, when they receive the respect from their wives, you spoke about if you feel affirmed in your abilities, fact that you're
Mhm.
competent, and in your leadership, as a leader, as the leader of the family, it's important that the wife um offer praise and admiration. This admiration, that's telling, oh, you're a great leader. And it doesn't have to be we don't have to find all of the big but it must be from the heart. It must be, you don't have to be highfalutin words and overdone, but just simple, that you're a great leader. Thank you for supporting our family. Thank you for working hard. You're a pioneer. Just simple things that says that I appreciate you as a husband. Like you talk about the fact that, oh, you look very attractive in your outfit this morning, in your suit, that you are, as you talk. And I think it's important to infuse fun and humor in the relationship. We talk about
Yeah, true,
you
very
having
true,
you
very
having
true.
a belly, well, you having a big belly, um that
Yeah, when we started out, I had
you
six
never
pack. Now I only
you
have
never
one.
had a right. You had a six pack or you had a but now you have a one pack, right? But you're still very attractive. And so rather than speaking about the fact that oh no you don't have you have one pack as opposed to a six pack, it's important to notice and comment on the things that are still attractive and the things that are still going well. So
Hmm.
that's what I hear you saying that
Yes.
you respect when you receive respect from your wife, from me, or when husbands receive respect from their wife. Respect is equated with the feeling of that you're valued, that you're esteemed in your
Yes.
role as a leader and provider of the family. And that helps to boost your self-confidence. You know, you
Hmm.
walk with pride and to know that your wife is very proud of you. I think those
Yeah.
those little things make a big difference. Is that what it sounds like? That's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. But but Raquel, how do we fit all of this though
Mm-hmm.
into the modern world, the modern relationships? Because the goalposts have shifted. Because now what we are seeing, and this is something that the world is putting forward, that the world of relationships of men and women
Mm-hmm.
is almost like it's a stiff competition. So so therefore, if you are not doing, I won't. And everything that is done must be done on equal standing. So it's a 50-50 relationship. So in other words, if you are not respecting me, I won't love you. And if I don't love you, you won't respect me. I am only going to give what I'm getting. And that is where the modern world is.
Yes,
And
but you see,
that's
but
why many of these relationships don't last any time.
that's what I was about to say, and that's why the divorce rate is so high because the Bible, God who instituted marriage, didn't ever speak about the fact that it should be 50-50. Ah,
Hmm.
and even when you are not doing your best as a leader, it doesn't take away your role as being the leader. So even when you're not being a good leader,
Hmm.
even when a husband is not being a good leader, he should still be respected for the role that he plays. We can relate to the times in a company setting. Let's say in a company setting, you have a CEO or you have a supervisor. The fact that the supervisor is not being a good supervisor doesn't mean that he stops being the supervisor or that he do no longer
Yeah,
should get the
true.
respect as a supervisor.
So true.
People
So
can
true.
relate to that quite easily, you know. And it's a similar concept.
Hmm.
If the wife is not being a good
Very
wife,
true.
probably if she burns the food or she doesn't know how to take care of the house, doesn't mean that you should stop loving her as a wife. Or let's as the example that many
Yeah.
people will use. Um, the husband is not being a good leader. So should you now curse him out and take on the role as being a leader of the family because he's not playing his role well? No.
Yeah.
With support and
When I
encouragement, when working together, the improvement will come.
Yes, true, true. Interestingly, when I looked at the that passage in Ephesians chapter 5:33, husbands love your wives and wives submit to your own husbands. There's also a similar passage like that in the book of Colossians,
Yes.
almost identical. But interestingly, the passage in Colossians is slightly different from the one in Ephesians in meaning, because one of the ideas that the passage in Colossians carries, especially when he says, "Husbands, love your wives," the idea that is brought forward actually carries with it that even if your wife behaves in an unloving way, you still have an obligation to love her. In other
Mhm.
words, where God is concerned, Our responsibility to love our wives does not even depend on how our wives are behaving.
Right.
And the flip side is also true, right? For the for the wife to respect her husband, it doesn't even depend on him being behaving in a respectable way, if for want of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
But she ought to behave in that way, not because of her husband, but because of the relationship that she has with God.
Correct.
And the same truth also runs for the husband, that he is obligated to love her, not because she is behaving loving, but because as a husband, I have a responsibility to God. And notice one of the things that Paul does, and it always impress, it's an interesting thing for me that Paul says that a husband must love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. That is Raquel, that's a big ask, you know.
But going back to your initial question about, these modern day marriages or modern day couples, where many people don't take the time to understand the foundation or the basics of you're gone, your video is gone, Paul.
I'm here.
Okay, right. So going back to that question where we ask about modern day marriages or modern day couples, they don't understand, they don't appreciate the point you just made, you know, about the wife's responsibility to God and her husband, and the husband's responsibility to God and his wife. Those
Hmm.
concepts, they don't appreciate those concepts, and that's part of the breakdown.
Hmm.
There are some comments uh in the chat. Let us probably pause a little to acknowledge those comments. Uh,
I'm trying to let me bring them up. When my wife says to me out of the blue, "Baby, you are sexy and I love you," that makes me feel good. It's better to hear these words inside as opposed to outside. And that is that is right on point. Definitely
that's
true.
right.
Definitely true.
That's right.
Definitely right.
That's right.
It is not what you say, but often it is how you say what you say
That
that
makes
makes
the
the difference.
difference.
That is right on point. That is so true. That is true. That is true. Raquel, as we have this discussion, I want to put something here, that in the whole relationship of marriage, that one of the things that we ought to be doing as couples, as wives and husbands,
Yes.
is really not to be looking as to whether my wife is loving me, or the husband, wife, whether my husband, well, for the
For the
husband, whether
husband.
my wife is respecting, or the
But
husband, you know,
mm-hmm.
but rather to focus on what our responsibility is in the relationship. Because if I am focused on giving you 100% of my love, then do I really have to worry about you respecting me?
No, because it's a natural, it's natural, it's an again, it's a natural progression. You talk about one, two, three, A, B,
Hmm.
C. So as you are as you are acting in loving ways towards me, then it becomes easy for me to be respectful to you, for me to
Hmm.
honor you, for me to be thankful about your leadership role, for me to to speak to you and to give you praise about your competencies and about just adore you as my husband. But the challenge is that in the ups and downs of life, people, husbands get tired, wives get overwhelmed, and so from time to time now, when you don't take the time to prioritize. And so you see, one of the, I think it might be a good segue for us to talk about what are the practical ways that we demonstrate love, what are the practical ways that we show respect. Because if we
Mm-hmm.
don't take the time, if couples don't take the time to do check-ins, if couples don't take the time to plan date nights, to just sit with each other, to hug each other, to stroke each other, then you get lost and tired and bombarded with all of the other things that are coming at you. So
Mm-hmm.
it's we don't we want it to move from just a thought or a concept into a practical talk about practical Christianity. We also want to talk about how to
Mm-hmm.
practice love and respect in your marriage. How do we do that? How does it manifest itself? And if
Mm-hmm.
those who are joining us online, you can put what works for you in the chat. We're getting there in terms of how do we practically demonstrate love? How do we practically demonstrate respect to each other as husbands and wives? Where do you want to jump in?
Well, I think you touched on it a little bit.
Yes, that we have to
Uh,
be intentional. Have to be
yes,
intentional.
have to be intentional,
Yes,
and you have to you have to want the relationship to work for it to work. You have to be very and I like the idea of being intentional. Have to be
yes,
intentional. You have to want this to work, and if you
yes,
want this to work, then it means that you are going to do what is necessary for it to work. And why I said that is that getting to this place, Raquel, is going to take some level of discomfort. Right? And
definitely.
I read something today that says if you want to be successful, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Very profound statement. And
Yes,
though that was looking at um, the world of business and so forth, I found it very very pertinent to relationships also. That if you want a successful relationship, then you have to be willing to suffer some discomfort. And and, and I think especially by the way, let me not say that it is harder for men versus women. I don't think that it is necessarily harder or easier. What I think is important is really how we are socialized. That makes a difference.
yes,
So some things, some aspects of it may come natural to others, and so forth. But you have to be willing to become uncomfortable. Let us use an example. For a man who does not know the art of listening, has never learned the art of listening actively, that is going to cause him some level of discomfort,
mm-hmm.
right? Because I know one of the things about active listening is that you have to suppress the need to respond.
Right away. Yes,
And for many of us as men, that is not something that come very natural at all. Because as soon as we hear something being said, the natural thing that come to us is that there's a problem that needs to be solved, and we just want to get to the problem right away and
yes,
fix it. But in active listening, we have to be willing to listen without having that need to respond. Listen, process, and understand before we communicate. And that for me takes very deliberate effort. The other thing, Raquel, empathy. You know that as men, we are not naturally empathetic,
right.
especially in relationships.
Yes, but I don't want it. I don't want you to just be focusing on the men meaning because sometimes women are just not empathetic too. You know, sometimes so it's important to balance it out. Let us
Mhm.
balance it
Yeah,
out. Don't.
no man, I'm going to balance it. I am going to balance it. But no, I am speaking from a male's perspective,
Yes,
right? That this is not something that comes naturally to us. So it is something that has to be learned. And as you rightly said, the flip side of that is also true. because sometimes we make the unfortunate mistake because of the fact that men don't listen very well. We tend to think that all men don't listen, and that is not necessarily true either.
Right.
Right?
Correct.
There are men who are far better listeners than women,
Mm-hmm.
right? But even in that case, Raquel, it is something that has to be learned,
It's something that
right?
has to be learned,
Something
you
that
know.
has to be learned,
Right.
right?
Just
Validation.
before you before you
Yeah, go
before
ahead.
you before you go on, there there's another comment in the chat from Marie. We want to welcome again Marie. Her comment says refraining from speaking negatively about our spouses to family and friends is also a mark of respect.
Yes, that's true.
If we're having mental problems, we should
Marital problems.
marital problems. We should get advice from, maybe I need to change my glasses, from mature people in the church instead of practicing to speak negatively about each other, especially when we are experiencing problems.
I want
Excellent.
let us pick up that point, Raquel. I
Yes.
think I think that's a point that we can't glance over.
Yes. Yes. You're right.
And Emerson actually speaks a lot about that. One of the things that can destroy relationships is when spouses speak negatively of each other to people who have nothing to do with their relationships, be it family members or friends or co-workers or acquaintances. Speaking negatively about your spouse is a sure way to destroy your relationship,
Definitely.
right? It let us just lay it out on the line, Raquel. It is an unloving action.
It is a
Straight
disrespectful action, right?
a
It's a disrespectful
disrespectful
action.
action. Whether husband or wife does it. It is an action. It is saying to the other person that you don't value my feelings, that you are not considerate of who I am in the relationship and even what I contribute to the relationship.
Mhm.
Right?
Or
Somebody
the challenges that the person might be going through at the time. They're not
or even
considerate of
the
the
challenge
challenges.
that the person might be going through at the time.
Yeah.
And somebody may ask, Raquel, because I know that persons will say that, all right, so what if I am trying to talk to my spouse and you know they are not
Mm, stone wall.
they listen and they behave in unloving ways and all of that. I
Hmm.
I have no other choice. But notice what Mary says. Mary says, talk to mature persons.
Seek
Talk to
counseling.
persons who can be objective.
Hmm.
Talk to persons who can be godly. Right? Talk to persons who have
Of
experience
experience.
and can give advice that is helpful. Because oftentimes I also find that in many of these instances, persons discuss their struggles and conflicts with their spouses. The persons who have little or no experience, sometimes don't even have any good intention towards them.
Was exactly. So
Right?
one of the takeaways that it's we're definitely not saying don't share or don't deal with that problem, but
But
you have to
choose
use
who you share
wisdom.
with.
That's right. You have to
Yes.
use wisdom with whom you share, with whom you
Hmm.
discuss, the pertinent or even some confidential matters. You have to choose
Hmm.
wisely and choose prayerfully too. Because some persons just want to just get out, get this stuff off their chest. Just want to be talking. But it's important,
Hmm.
and as they spoke about that, there in marriage there will be some level of discomfort. There will be times when it will not be easy. It will be hard. But the fact
Hmm.
that you're experiencing hardship, experiencing some discomfort, doesn't mean that is the end of the marriage. Doesn't mean that we should become unloving or disrespectful. But it
Yeah.
means that it's important now to pause and to assess, to evaluate, and then make the right decision.
How I look at the discomfort, Raquel, is like jogging or playing a sport.
Yeah. Mhm.
When you
It just
start
start.
when you start, like, when I used to play football, one of the things that used to happen is that when you start playing for the first 5 minutes, it's almost as if you can't go in anymore. You're
Anymore.
out of breath within 5 minutes.
Yeah, but it,
But
the
the
bones
longer you
aching.
play, is the more your body get acclimatized to running and moving, and so your breathing becomes very natural after you pass those
That's
first five ten
perfect.
minutes. In our relationships, it's the same thing. As we embark on our relation, and that, I think we would have said it in one of our sessions, that especially for married couples, those first 2 to 5 years are the most difficult years of marriage. And you would have heard me say many times that I believe that if couples can get past the first 5 years of marriage, they'll be married for a very long time, because those first 5 years are the years of discomfort, the years of conflict, the years of misunderstanding,
The years of
the years
adjustment,
of
you know?
miscommunication, years of
Adjustment.
adjustment,
Mhm.
right? But you find that if you have the right foundation in those 5 years, those few years, then by the time you get to year 6, 7, 8, it's not that you'll be cruising, but you'll have a better understanding of each other. That is where you would have laid the foundation for solving conflicts,
Yeah.
the foundation for growing together, the foundation for letting go. And Emerson says all of this in his book. And so what is important, Raquel, is that even in looking at this idea of love and respect, the one of the key things is to have the correct foundation.
Definitely. The correct foundation. And you see, part of having the foundation too, part of having a correct foundation is that it's important to minimize the criticism, minimize the negativity, and
Yes,
find
yes.
ways,
True, true.
because a lot of times, persons fail to look past each other's mistakes. Husbands and wives, they
Hmm.
fail to look past. They just want to just be in your back. They just want to be just quarrelsome. But there's no relationship any at all where everything will be perfect. So the important I think one of the important piece of the foundation is that you have to be willing to look past each other's weaknesses
Yes.
and pull and
Yes.
work just and pull on each other's strength.
That's right. That's right.
Pull on each
I,
other's
I
strength.
I was reading something the other day, Raquel. I don't remember which book I was reading it in. A couple, they were newly married,
Uh-huh.
and the first time the wife went to the kitchen to prepare a meal after they got back from the honeymoon, she burnt the steak, and she started worrying about what her husband was going to say. That where he was going to say that she's not a good wife and that she can't do anything and all of that. And the husband responded by making a big joke out of her burning the steak.
And that ease
And
some of the tension.
it became a very light moment. And one of the things that she said, I'm trying to remember which book I was reading, but one of the things that she said is that of all the things that her husband has ever done the time that they were married. And I think her husband died, eventually. He died before her. But she said one of the memories that she always holds on to is how he responded that day when she burnt the steak.
He was gracious.
Right? Yes, he was gracious. And as you rightly said, Raquel, we have to, in terms of looking at love and respect, one of the key things is that we have to learn to look past certain things. So even in instances, as we rightly said, so the husband will not always behave loving. The wife will not always behave respectful. We are human beings.
Hmm.
But can we forgive when those things don't happen? Right? Do we make a case out of everything, or do we learn to and to forgive. Because one of the things that Emma stresses is that to make a relationship work, especially where love and respect are concerned, the element of forgiveness must always be present. Because from one day to the next, from one minute to the next, we change our responses to life. So one day we might behave in very loving ways, and we feel our wives are on top of the world. In another day, the wife may behave so respectful, and the husband is on top of the world, and all of that. But the very next day, something goes wrong, and the feeling and the behavior is the opposite. Do you stop loving your wife or husband then? Have
Mm-hmm.
they become the villain? Right then, the same person
The
that
same
you are
person.
celebrating today has done something that is completely out of character the other day. No, do you stop loving that person, or do you continue to love them in spite of and learn to forgive? It's very important.
Exactly. Exactly. That's sacrificial love. You know,
Yes.
that's
Marie says,
okay. Hmm.
refraining from using absolute words such as you never, you always, and grace. Wonderful, Mary. That is such a powerful statement.
Yes.
Such a powerful
There's an additional comment
and
just to support Marie.
amen, Mary. I would like to add another word, and that word should, and that, yes, that word is should. Yes, true, 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 very true. Yes, these absolute words in Racquel are like, I don't know which
A ton of bricks on somebody's head.
I don't know which crazy person came up with this thing about sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But those words, never, always, and should, can turn your relationship upside down, and make love and respect look like long distance cousins.
Exactly. You see, those words cause the husband to shut down. Those words cause
Yes,
the
that's
wife
true.
to shut
That's
down.
true.
And you don't want in a marriage for the couples to shut down, because when
Yeah,
you
that's
shut
true.
down now, you
That's
have all kind of you're pushing against a wall. You are, you know,
that,
you are in a situation where you can't have resolution, you can't have reconciliation, and
yes,
it's,
that's
it's
true.
important. It's important that I think when we just started, we talk about fighting fairly. We're talking about establishing ground rules, and even the same we talk about setting the
Yes.
foundations, setting a good or solid foundation. Part of setting a
Hmm.
solid foundation in order to have love and respect in a relationship is that there are
Yeah.
some words that the wife and the husband have to decide we won't use those words. We'll
Yes, that's true.
avoid those words because they send the wrong message.
Yeah.
They hurt. They cut deep, and sometimes we don't understand the extent of how our words can affect each other.
Raquel, I remember one of the things that we said when we were dating and before we got married. And it is interesting, that's 17 years, and that reality is just so profound. When we were dating and we were looking to get married, I don't know if you remember, one of the things that we said is that we would never ever use the
Is
word
the,
divorce.
the D word? We don't use the D word
Do we realize that in 17 years we have never used that word
because that's not
about any kind of conflict we've ever had?
that's
That word has never come up.
exactly. And so
And it goes back to what you said, Raquel. The foundation, setting the foundation,
correct, correct.
establishing the ground rules. That this is where we go.
Yes.
When we have conflicts, how are we going to solve the conflicts?
Hmm.
And you would hear me also say to couples when I counsel and when we counsel together that there are some things that you just have to decide on. And one of the things I tell couples is when they are preparing for marriage is I prefer you to have a house with only one bedroom. Why? Because there's nowhere else to sleep but the bedroom. So when you have a conflict, you don't have a choice. There's nowhere else to go. And so when I look at that, I think about you have to be very practical if you want a relationship to work. You can't leave it up to chance. And that is one of the things that Emerson, is very strong on, is that you can't leave your relationship up to chance. You have to be very, very deliberate about how you are going to navigate your relationship in times of conflict. Even when as a matter of fact, one of the things that he said, Raquel, even when things are going right. Remember what
Right.
he said?
Yes,
He said,
exactly.
things are going right, you must be in preparation mode, because as sure as night turns to day, a storm is on the horizon.
Exactly, 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 exactly. And it makes the point of what you said earlier about the fact that we have to I just lost my train of thought. But the point that I'm remembering also is that we spoke about that there are certain things that we should avoid, but there are certain things that we also think that we want to do. We want to. What are some things that will make this relationship strong? What
Yes,
are
true,
something,
true.
so you have to we have to put a good balance on it. When you look at that scale, there are certain things that help to put a balance in your relationship. So certain things that we
Yes.
should avoid, but there are certain things that we definitely need to do. Continue to do. We talk about setting scheduling and setting aside time for each other.
Hmm.
Time for checking. We were going earlier, and as we're approaching, it's as we're approaching 9 o'clock. I'm sure we'll possibly
Yeah, let
do
us
a
not
part
touch that
two.
one tonight. Let us
We'll possibly do
use
a,
another.
but
Yeah.
yes, but I also want to make the point that it's important to set aside, because practically, how do you demonstrate love, and practically how do you demonstrate respect? Is by doing certain things. It's by setting aside time for the relationship. We talk about being intentional. We talk about being forgiving. And although we're sharing many of the principles from Emerson's book, Love and Respect. All of these principles are biblical principles. And as
Yes, very
Christians,
true. Yeah.
we definitely want, to emphasize the importance of the Bible, the importance of God in the success of your marriage, you know, because for sure we can no couple can do it on their own. The, the God principle has to be the driving principle for the success of any marriage, and it has been the success for our marriage.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. As we get ready to wrap up our discussion tonight, Raquel, this has been an interesting discussion. And we have not even touched the crazy cycle yet. And that's a whole other discussion, getting off the crazy cycle. But I think we have, tonight has been a very, very wonderful night in terms of our dialogue, our discussion, and we pray and hope that our audience, couples, whether you're single or married, or going through something in a relationship, or even if you're just happy, right? I hope that tonight we would have, you discuss something that would have piqued your interest and help, find some nuggets to help you to have a better relationship. And if you are working on getting married, to also help you to have a solid foundation, because the foundation is important. The foundation is important. It's one of those things that if you set the foundation correctly, even when the storms come, the roof might blow off, the structure will still be standing. And that is very important. We also want to let our audience know that Raquel and I are working on a book that we're going to publish, hopefully by the end of this year into next year, that deals with marriage and relationships. That's going to be an interesting book. First book that Raquel and I will author. We are really working towards that one. So wherever you have joined from tonight, whether in Africa, in the US, in England, or somewhere in the Caribbean, or anywhere in your neck of the woods, we pray that tonight has been very, very beneficial for you, and that we would have given God glory and honor in our discussion, because everything that we do is about giving God glory and honor. We celebrate this institution of marriage not because we have been successful, but we, although we have been successful, but we could not have done it outside of God's love. Everything that we do, every success that we achieve, it's all because of the Almighty God. So as we close out tonight, Mary says, very practical discussion. Thank you. Blessings, Mary. Blessings, blessings, blessings.
Thank you.
We want to express our love and appreciation for giving us this platform where we can discuss this wonderful institution called marriage. I will allow Raquel to close out a few words.
Thank you. Well, I want to close with the Bible verse, that talks about Ephesians 5:33, that each one of you must love his wife as he loved himself, and the wife must respect her husband. I think it's important. It's profound, and it's a foundation of this discussion. It's a foundation of all marriages. That we spoke about that puzzle piece. When you connect them, that love and respect makes that a great ingredient for a wonderful marriage. It's possible. We are experiencing it, and we wish the very same for you. But you cannot do it by yourself. Christ must be in the middle of it. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Would you
Thank you.
share the email address for us again, so that just in case somebody wants to reach out to
Our,
us?
our email address is levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. That's levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. Please shoot us an email, whether it is a comment or something that you want to talk to us about. Just shoot us an email and we will respond. That's levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. Thank you very much. God bless and have a good night.
Yes. Respect to Brother Dexter and the LBW radio team of members. Thank you so much.
They can never take the love that's in this place.